All right, can everybody hear me there? I'm going to fire up my video. Looked like we were having some issues. I was also muted, as Star was mentioning there. So welcome to our webinar. This is our first webinar that we've done yet. So hopefully it'll go smoothly. And we really appreciate you taking your time out of your day to spend a little bit of time with us to learn more about wake shaping and kind of how this whole thing works, and a little bit about our products there too. Seems like we all have a little bit more time at home these days. So as you can probably see here, I'm working from home as well. And so you might hear some noise in the background, got a couple of teenagers kicking around and a dog. So who knows what'll happen here through the next hour, but I'll go ahead and get started here. I'm just gonna share my desktop with you guys. So Star, it does look like you need to enable screen sharing for me.
Okay, give me 1 second and I will do that.
We were taking some extra precautions. We've heard some rumors about Zoom hijackers. So Star was locking everything down here, and apparently I got locked down too.
I'm just going to change you over to host here and see if that will work.
All right. And you can still hear me, Star? I think it looks good.
I can, yeah. So I'm going to mute myself now.
All right. All right. There we go. So as I mentioned, we're doing this little webinar here on wake shaping. And so let's see here, get these fired up. So I'm Kris Clover. So I'm one of the founders of Mission. I'm the guy on the right there. My business partner, Mark, on the left. He's the guy in maroon. I'm not Mark, I'm Kris. So he has been an awesome contributor to the creation of Mission. And just an awesome guy. If you ever have a chance to meet Mark, just phenomenal engineer and wake surfer and boater for his entire life. I'm by training an industrial designer, so I do a lot of the product design and a lot of the creative aspects of everything that we do. So kind of the man, both of us are the men behind the mission here. So so yeah, let's jump right into it. So if you're here, you're probably after a wave like this. You know, I think that was kind of what we were after when we created Mission and what became the Delta Wake Shaper. And, you know, we saw a lot of great brand new surf boats out there with awesome waves like this, but we had an older generation boat. And so, you know, or we both had different boats, but we didn't ever imagine that we could get an awesome wave out of these older generation boats. So this wave is the one that's being thrown off of Mark's boat here. It's a 2005 Centurion. Throws a phenomenally long wave, plenty of height. You can surf on it all day long with a device like Delta. Or this wave. This is one that we used in a photo shoot here. This was with Echo. This is from 5 Malibu Echelon. A ski boat, awesome, phenomenal ski boat. Somebody was kind enough to put a tower on it, and it's a direct drive boat, but throws a beautiful looking wave here. So just, you know, to have this ability to create a phenomenal wave behind an older generation boat is something that's pretty awesome. So fundamentally, to do that, you need a device like this. And these are two devices that we make now. There's a ton of other different options out there, but you know, it started with Delta. So I want to take a little bit of time of, you know, we get this question is like, what is a wake shaper? Is it truly shaping the wave? Like what's going on here? And this verb, or sorry, this noun of a thing called a wake shaper somewhat emerged. We called it a wake shaping solution. I mean, it's really a turbulence inducing device, which doesn't sound very good, but you know, like this term wake shaper evolved. But it's actually not the only thing at play here. There's wake shaping is a verb, not a noun per se. So if you kind of want to get into the nuances. So I'm going to break it down a little bit beyond what the wake shaper, the thing that we know of today, and go into wake shaping for the most part. So it's essentially a 3-part system, just to overly simplify. You need a device, a turbulence inducing device, and that's what delta is. And that's what creates the clean faced wave and allows the wake surfing waves to be maintained at a much higher rate of speed. So in essence, the wake shaper is creating the environment to get the best possible wave you can get out of your particular hull design and your particular application. So the next thing is the attitude and displacement of your boat. So weight comes into play here. So the more ballast you have, the more you're pushing your boat down in the water, and you're changing the way that the boat behaves as it moves through the water. This is what actually is changing the shape of the wave. Delta is creating the enabling conditions for a clean face wave. The ballast amount and location within the boat is really changing the actual shape. Height, vertical, length can become part of that too. And then third, speed. Speed is a really important element here too. This also can change the shape of the wave, but the biggest impact it has is on the feel of the wave, or what we call push or energy in that face. And this is what allows the boards to plane out and move faster through the water. So I'll kind of break down all of these guys independently. So how does a wake shaper actually work? There's a lot of misconceptions around what's happening with these things and how these things all work. So we're just going to kind of break it down here very simplistically. So, when you naturally see a boat moving through the water here, you have what are called 2 laminar flows of water rushing past the hull, and they collide at the center line right behind the center of the boat. So these 2 laminar flows create this messy, washy pattern that you would naturally get behind your boat. So here's a simple illustration. So the laminar flow is kind of like the water that comes out of the end of a hose. So imagine, this finger is a hose, not thumbkin, but just the finger. If you have these 2 laminar flows rushing past the hull, they collide at the center line, and then they create a bunch of wash. So that's what you're seeing here at the tail end of this illustration. And it just makes for a very messy condition. When you list the boat prior to having a wake shaper, you're kind of manipulating these 2 streams around, trying to get them to pass in different ways and things like that. But what we're doing, if you look at this video, you can see how, this particular boat, this is an X2, moves through the water with a wake shaper on the side. So you can see how now all of a sudden you have one flow that's essentially undisrupted, and you have another flow that's being kind of washed out. So if we go to this diagram, get there, you can see here you have one flow that stays laminar and stays crystal clear, and you have another flow that becomes disrupted. So if you imagine these things being like garden hoses, like the water coming out of the end of a garden hose is laminar, ton of power, crystal clear. Take those 2 streams, cross them, you're going to get a big splash. That's what's naturally happening. Here, what we're doing is it's kind of like putting your thumb over the end of one of those hoses and diffusing the power that stream has so that the other one can stay clean. You can kind of see that in this diagram. One's being disrupted, the other one stays natural. And that's basically what's happening behind your boat when you introduce, a turbulence-inducing device like Delta. So pretty simple when you break it down. Garden hoses seem to be the best analogy that we found. If you got something else, we're all ears. So next, let's talk a little bit about ballast. We've got some great blog content out there for all these topics. If you got some time to kill, I think Mark goes on for 6 or 7 minutes to talk about how to get the best possible wave out of your boat. Just jump into the blog section on our website, and you can really take a deep dive there if you're sitting on your couch looking for something to do while the ice comes off. Incidentally, ice came off of Lake Minnetonka yesterday, so we are ecstatic. Time to get the docks in and the boats out of storage so we can get out there and surf. So ballast. So essentially what you're doing, as I mentioned earlier, is changing the attitude of the boat as it moves through the water. So you can kind of see here in this simple illustration, if you apply a small amount of weight in the boat, you get a small wave feature behind the boat. Water, to break it down simplistically, is a non-compressible medium. So when you push down on one side, just like a waterbed, push down on one side, the other side goes up. So the same thing is happening as your boat moves through the water. The more you push down on the boat, the more the wave pops up behind it. So with our recommended weighting of your particular boat, we recommend in a V drive, a 60% of the weight in the back, 40% in the bow. This gives you medium displacement in pushing the boat down a certain amount, and then it jacks up the wave a corresponding amount to give you that height. Now, if you throw a ton of ballast in the back, put all your ballast back there, you're going to get a really tall wave, but it's going to really decrease the length. If you noticed in the previous diagram, the wave draws out more because the boat is not kind of cutting into the water. So, you know, you're with 100% of the weight, you get this really tall wave, but it's not very long. It's going to really throw you into the swim platform. So you really got to watch out to be sure that you're not over ballasting your boat too. I had an A20 when we first started this whole thing. And, you know, I was like, all right, the more ballast, the better. I'm going to throw everything I got out there. And you know, the hard tanks, I think in the back were 250s. And I threw some 800 bags in the back lockers. And that thing just was sacked out. It just couldn't get on plane. Even when you're wake surfing, you're still up on plane. You might think that you need to be going 18 or 20 miles an hour to get there, but there's a lower level planing, and that's what we're doing wake surfing. So when I threw those 800s in the back, it was just a bad idea. I couldn't even get the boat to plane out. It just kept chugging. And actually, when I discovered that, we did it for our first photo shoot for the very first Delta video. That was where I got excited and borrowed these bags and put them in there. Once I dropped the weight down by half, got it under the 400 mark in those back bags. So that was like 650 per side. Then all of a sudden the wave came back and it was beautiful again. So simple lesson there, just be sure you don't over ballast your boat, especially in those 20-foot wave size boats. So then this equal distribution left to right, this is where we recommend that you start for a V-drive boat here. You know, kind of splitting that 30%, the 60% into two halves. Certain applications, and depending on your surf style, you may want to lean the boat or list it towards one side with either a passenger or a couple Atlas bags. This will give you a little bit more vertical and peel on the top of the wave. But if you're just getting started, weight the boat evenly left to right. It just takes a lot of the equations out. The other thing is if you have other surf altering devices like a wedge or trim tabs or something like that, just leave those off for now when you're getting started, because it just changes the dynamics and it's hard to see what's going on when you're getting started. If you have a direct drive boat, we recommend that you throw as much of the weight behind the engine as you can. In this particular illustration, there's a seat and some rear compartments here. So it might be difficult to get that weight way back, but if your boat, you know, can remove the rear seat or anything like that, put that weight as far back as you can. You're really going to see some benefit because that engine is pretty heavy and that's at your center line. All right, I'll talk a little bit about speed here too, because that's kind of the third element. So fundamentally, the faster you go, the harder the water gets. You know, think about barefoot skiing versus, you know, wake surfing. The water is very firm at those higher rates of speed. So just a few miles an hour faster or slower makes a huge difference in how the boards plane out and how much energy is in the face of that wave. So, you know, 14 miles an hour, you're going to get a ton of energy, but your wave is going to be really short because your boat is really planing out. Which can be good. You know, I'm at 205 pounds, something like that. And, you know, I like a little bit more speed because it gives me more push. I have to make sure that I have enough ballast in the boat to compensate for that added speed. So, you know, you get that more planing out at this higher rate of speed. So if you drop the speed down to say 11 miles an hour, which is where we recommend that you start, now you've got a good balance of firmness or energy in the water with wave size. And then if you kind of drop it down before where you might have been when you were listing the boat prior to these wake shaping devices, you get this really beautiful looking wave, but it has no push or energy. It's just soft and mushy. That's because you're going too slow. In that 9 miles an hour, it's just going to be real soft. You're going to need a bigger board. At these higher rate of speeds, you can really drop down a board size, similar to your feet versus a water ski or wakeboard. Delta. All right, so we'll start with Delta here. Delta is really the thing that started it all with this whole suction-based wake shaping. It's what allowed Mark and I to do this full time. It's just a phenomenal game changer of a product. I've been in product development for over 20 years, and you don't come across a product like this every day in your career. But to see something have so much meaning for people in their lives and really changing the way they think about their boats was pretty impactful for us. Just go overnight when we had that kind of aha moment about putting something on the side of the boat with suction cups. It was just it was game changing for us and for all of our customers. And Mark and I are pretty good guys. We're all about smiles. So our whole brand has really been about putting more smiles on more faces. So what can we develop as product innovators to help you have more fun in your day? There's a ton of frustration points. Listing your boat was one of them. And so to come up with something so simple and so game changing was pretty awesome. That's really where Mark and I get our motivation is having those game changer moments. And I think we're seeing that with Century fenders now too. But yeah, that's kind of our big approach. And this is where it started. So this is Gen 2 of Delta. So we've made a few changes and adjustments. You launch something, you think you've got it all right, and you find that there are just some additional improvements that you can make once you get it out there and into the hands of your customers. So that's what we did here. So with Delta 2.0, we really found that this turbulence inducing effect really be played up additional features on the face. Oh, hey, Toby. Sorry. So having these additional features induces more turbulence without having to create this really giant size product. You can, as I mentioned before, it's all about turbulence. So going back to the hose analogy here, if you put your thumb over one of those ends of the hoses, if you block that flow slightly, you're going to get some spray back to the nice clean laminar flow. And so you're going to get a messy faced wave slightly. If you increase the size of your thumb slightly, it will go to a clean face wave. If you make your thumb really large, it's really going to make the wave cleaner, but the wave is already clean. So there's really no point of making your thumb any larger once you have a clean face wave. All this is doing is adding a lot of downsides. Your fuel consumption is going to go way up. Your steerage goes way up. Like when you're going back to pick up the rider, it's a real pain when you have this giant thing attached to the side of your boat. So once you have enough turbulence inducing effect, you no longer need to increase that amount of turbulence, because all it is doing is putting more drag and pressure on the side of the boat, and it has all these adverse effects. It does not change the height of the wave, despite what some people are trying to say. So rip flow technology, that's these perforations in the front. This induces more turbulence. We introduced this for tricky applications. Some of your larger boats over 23 feet just needed a little bit more turbulence. That laminar flow was bigger, so we needed to provide a little bit more turbulence to clean that face up without having to lean your boat a little bit. Your X stars have a suboptimal location where you need to put delta, so this extra turbulence really helps in that application. So that's rip flow. The other thing is, as I briefly mentioned here, the angle of attack, as we call it, for the faceplate or for the main panel of delta is really important. this is what helps us with efficiency as well, and gives us enough turbulence inducing effect to work on 98% of the boats out there. So this is what gives us our competition class wave performance with lower fuel consumption than you find with OEM systems or any other shapers. And then also you just have no steerage when you go on back to pick up the rider, and then also less splashing. So it's pretty cool. Let's see here. So the other thing that Delta has is this reversible design, which is pretty cool. It allows us as a company to offer one product that works on 99% of the boats out there. It gives it so much flexibility. We can speak with confidence when somebody calls us and says, hey, will it work on my boat? There's a 99% sure chance that yes, it will. So this flexibility is really important to us, and I think it allows you to not have to worry about buying, the right or wrong product. You can have confidence and know that the Delta will work with your application. So reverse orientation is really intended. Got one sitting over here. So you mount the panel like this. The water should always shed like an umbrella. Make it feel like this. It's raining. So it should always shed water like an umbrella. This is really good for inboard boats, direct drive boats that have less ballast. It positions Delta further back in the water so it can be more submerged than you might be if you were using it in the normal application, just like this. So this is really good for V-drive boats. Just positions it a little bit further forward. You really could run it in either direction, but you could run it in reverse orientation majority of the time, but some of the geometries on the side of the boats have sloped down, so or crop corners and things like that. So the normal orientation is what we recommend for V-drive boats that are decently ballasted. All right, high loft suction cups. So, through the years, there's been a lot of people that have kind of followed what Delta has done in the market, and what you're seeing are a lot of flat suction cups. And it was something that when we started, we looked at that. But the thing with flat suction cups is they were developed to lift flat panels of glass. They do really well with that, but they don't stick real well to concave or convex surfaces. What you can see here is you can see there's a slight cup to our cup, or sorry, I should call it a dome, right? Cup to the cup. So you've got a slight dome to the suction cups, and this allows it to stick to a convex surface. So you get proper adhesion all the way around the side of the cup. If you have a flat suction cup, and you're sticking it on a round surface, nothing's going to grip around the edges. So those edges are going to be loose. So when water hits that edge, it's going to cause it to peel off very easily. So with the dome that we've added here in our high loft suction cups, that is what allows you to get extra grip on many different types of surfaces. Also, the durometer of our suction cups, or the hardness, or I should say softness of the suction cups, allows it to really contour over some super thin graphics or any features or nicks or scratches, where you just don't find that in these hard rubber style suction cups. One little tip, if we do get a phone call about the suction cups, it is usually, so in doing that, it does require a compression step. So when the lever, I'll use the back one here, when the lever is sticking straight up, you need to push in on that to flatten out that dome. So when I push on the lever here, if I push in on it, it flattens out the dome on the inside of the cup here, squishing out all the air and water. If you don't flatten that out, you have a pocket of air and water in there, and you're only getting adhesion, just around the perimeter here. You're not pulling essentially a full vacuum, as I'd say, but I'm sure that's wrong. So yeah, make sure you push in on the lever before you rotate it into the lock position. If you push on this body, the gray colored body here, you're only compressing the rim of the suction cup. You're not exhausting the air. So be sure you're doing that if you've got your Delta on the side of the boat. Pushing on those levers, then rotate them down. then you won't have any issues. There's a ton of videos out there and instructions. We try and kind of tell everybody about that because it isn't the most intuitive thing. So just if you're a dealer and you have customers, make sure you're telling them that, or check out those videos on our blogs. The other sweet thing about Delta is we notice a lot of boats have a lot of steps on the sides or chine lines. So that creates some, really tight spaces that Delta needed to fit into. So you can see the contour that we've done here to really make that face tuck in tight to those chine lines so you can get it all the way on a particular step. It also is what helps it work on so many different boats. Next, Toby, knock it off. Next, hey, sorry guys. So Delta also comes with a lifetime warranty. Like I said, we're all about smiles. So, accidents happen. This is a pretty abusive environment, being attached to the side of the boat. It's easy to forget. So accidents happen, and we know that, and we've built that into what we offer with Delta. So, if you break it, give us a call. We'll take care of you. It's a no worries lifetime warranty with Delta. So the other thing is that it does also come with a single loss guarantee. We used to have a leash. We decided to do away with that. It seemed to cause more problems than it was worth. But people still wanted the confidence of having some sort of fallback if something happened and they did lose it, because Delta does float. It's just a matter of losing it. So we built in a single loss guarantee. So it's sort of an insurance plan for the first year of ownership. Just give us a call if you lose it, and we'll make it right for you. So one thing about losing it, it is an easy thing to forget about Delta on the side of the boat. It works so well. Usually what happens is, you drain after a surf session, you drain your ballast, your buddies hop in the boat, you're having a, great chat or whatever, and ballast is done, you take off while Delta's still attached to the side of the boat. And now if the boat planes out quickly, it'll probably just stay on there if it's a higher position like an X2. But on some boats where it's a lower application, it'll just slide off at that higher rate of speed, north of 14 miles an hour. So, so what I recommend doing is taking the storage bag that comes with Delta and put that on top of the speedometer cluster when you're using Delta. It's just a good visual break to help you remember that Delta is still attached on the side of the boat. That's what I do, and it just, since then, I haven't ever forgotten about Delta. So that is one key thing. Just remember that it's there, because it is the silent runner. It just works. All right, we'll jump into Echo here. So Echo is essentially the baby brother to Delta. I love our extra light foam that we're using in our Century fenders. This is the awesome material. It's like the ultimate Nerf foam. It's just pretty much indestructible. And I thought it'd be awesome to make a wake shaper out of it. And so did Mark. So we took that on, we came up with Echo. Since launching Delta, there's been a bunch of other competitive products that have popped up. They're more of a wedge style shaper, and the performance characteristics are different, but people seem to like the wedge shaping, and so that form lended itself really well to doing product extra light foam. So it's a pretty slick little thing, super durable. What's pretty sweet is, I already touched on the wedge style form. So just to hit on that a little bit, this style form works really good on older generation boats. It induces less turbulence than Delta does, which is okay for like that 95 Malibu Echelon. It gives you just enough turbulence to get that wave popping for drop the handle wave performance. You're not going to get competition class wave performance out of like a 23 LSV or something like that. But it's a phenomenal product for what it is. It does also require a more slab-sided boat. So I'll kind of get into that a little bit here too. But what's sweet about the foam is it pretty much walks on water. It doesn't even go in. It's pretty cool. And if you just want to throw it at somebody, you can do that too. I don't know if I'd recommend that, but yeah, just a pretty cool product. For a wedge style shaper, it has a very compact footprint. We've essentially uppercut the side panels here. So when you look at it from the front, this allows it to fit into the chine lines better than your average wedge style shaper. Not as well as Delta, but it gets the job done when you're trying to get in tighter to those chine lines. And that footprint is pretty small for a wedge style shaper. High loft suction cups, just like Delta. They're actually the same ones, just different color. So similar durometer or same durometer, things like that. All right, so Delta versus Echo. This question comes up a little bit. So which one should I buy? They're at different price points, different material sets and different users. But fundamentally, you know, when we look at Delta, as I mentioned, it induces more turbulence than Echo does or any other wedge style shaper. So it's going to give you that competition class wave performance right off the bat on almost all inboard boats. So Echo doesn't quite deliver that same amount of turbulence, but it will get you surfing and it'll throw an awesome wave on an older generation flat-sided boat. Different materials, that's next. So this is a molded polymer. By the way, all of these products are made in the US as much as we can. The foam actually comes out of Canada, but they're pretty close. So we'll call it North America. I don't want to make anybody mad. So yeah, different material sets there. Delta has the rip flow technology, which gives you that more induced turbulence. Let's see here. Just kind of working my way down the list. Delta is the most compatible with all the different generation boats. Like I said, this guy works on 99% of the boats. Echo does have some more limited use because of that need for a larger surface area, and it doesn't induce as much turbulence. So we don't recommend it on boats over 22 feet-ish, depending on kind of the year of it, the boat. So we're actually working on a fitment guide that's pretty awesome. I spent a couple weeks going through all the different boat models that we could find. The boat industry is not like the automotive industry. There are so many different models. They're all boutique made. So the model years are short, or the runs are short. But we spent the time and went through all of those and we're going to get together this fitment guide that I'm super excited about. We just got to get that up on our site, but you'll be able to pick your model year range, boat model, and then it'll show you a picture and where we recommend putting Delta and any fitment notes. So that'll be pretty cool. That'll help answer a lot of questions. We do have that on the back end. So if you have a question about fit, definitely send that into our sales at Mission Boat Gear email account or use the form on the website and we can get you that information in the time being. What else? Both have high loft suction cups. Delta, as I mentioned, does use the least amount of fuel out there. Echo does consume a little bit more. Your engine RPMs are going to go up, but it's not going to be any different than an OEM system. Delta is just super fuel efficient. Low steerage with both of these. I think you'll find them both pretty comparable. There's less steerage with Delta because the water essentially goes through the rip flow slots here at low rates of speed. So you have even less surface area for it to be an auxiliary rudder. So that's pretty much it. So it just depends on your application and what you're looking for. And if you need advice, just give us a call or shoot us an email and we can chat about it further too. All right, so we get a lot of questions about, can Delta be used with OEM systems? This is one that comes up for new boat owners quite often. They're always looking for that better wave. And, why wouldn't you look at another solution to, a couple $100? Can I get an even better wave than I already have? And the answer to that question is it depends on which system you're looking at. So I put together this little diagram here to kind of give you an idea. It's kind of a progression from a yes or no question, but some of these devices already are introducing turbulence or manipulating the flow of water like Delta does. So you don't necessarily need a product like Delta. So anywhere from like Surfgate, that's a hard no. You're not going to see any benefit with using Delta with Surfgate. It is essentially diverting the stream, and it's creating an effect that already is comparable to what's going on here. So NSS is a turbulence inducing device like Delta. So you're not going to see any effect there. Super Swell is essentially doing this on the bottom of the boat. We actually haven't tested Delta with the Super Swell, but we're going to say it's also a turbulence inducing effect that you're getting out of that surf solution. So, I don't think you're going to see much benefit with Delta. Certainly welcome to give it a try, but I would say not much benefit to be gained there. The next one are the Gen 1 and Gen 2 surf systems. These are starting in a progression towards a tab-based system. So they are inducing some level of turbulence on the ends of these flaps. They have the ends of the trim tabs are curled, or there's some geometry there that's dragging in the water, kind of like rip flow, but that's inducing some turbulence. So you're going to get some effect like Delta, but not as much as some of the systems all the way to the left of this diagram. So yeah, with Gen 2, I think you on a particular side, you can see some benefit on some of the different models. Gen 1 is essentially a tab-based system. So really what those tabs are doing is manipulating the attitude of the boat. So you're causing the boat to pitch and roll and change as it moves through the water. So it's not inducing turbulence like your basic surf tabs, the very early surf tab systems. They don't induce any turbulence. So they're like a trim tab, like an inboard outboard boat would have. So you're just moving the boat up and down and around in the water. So what's kind of cool is if you introduce Delta with those types of systems, now you actually have a cleanup device, and you can change the attitude of the boat in the water. So you get a fair amount of control over the actual shape of that wave from your dashboard with those switches for the tab-based systems. So it's kind of a cool application, when you combine these things. So something to keep in mind if you guys want to chat more about it. Happy to have a conversation with you too about that. Fine-tuning your wave. I know you guys are gonna have a ton of questions about how to get the best possible wave out of your boat. Every single boat is different. Every hull design is different. So hull design does play a big role in the actual shape of your wave. I didn't touch on that because unless you're willing to buy a new boat, you can't really change the actual shape of your boat. So we touched on we kind of simplified it and kept it for what are some of the things that you can change. So if you have more questions about fine tuning your wave, jump on our blog site. This is the video that Mark talks for 7 minutes on every little nuance about things that you can tweak when you're out there on the water. So you got some couch time, spend it watching Mark go on and on and on about the nuances. It's pretty cool. So lastly, safety and etiquette. This is really important for the evolution of our sport. I think in any new sport, there are things that come about. You look at snowboarding and how long did it take to get snowboarding on all the ski. Just because there was a lot of known and a lot of uncertainty in that bred fear. So I think for all of us that are out there wake surfing, it's important for us to act as ambassadors for good behavior on the water. So the first one, is surf behind a boat that has a protected propeller. While Delta and Echo work on any single engine watercraft, we don't recommend surfing behind an inboard outboard boat or stern drive or outboard boat. You're just way too close to the propeller, especially for beginner riders. If you have a tall wave that has a lot of rampiness, it can throw the surfer right into the hole, right behind the lower unit there. So stay away from those style boats. The exception to this is obviously the new Volvo forward drive boats. Those are pretty cool. So you can definitely use Delta with that style style powertrain because the propeller is much further forward, like an inboard boat. So be smart with the application that you're using here. The next one is responsibility. I think here in Minnesota, they actually just passed a law or legislation that you need to be 250 feet from shore to wake surf. This is unfortunate. I mean, normally I do this anyway, but it's unfortunately that they need to pass this as law. There was talk about them going to 1,000 feet, which seemed a bit excessive, especially because how far is 1,000 feet on the water? I can't tell you. I can tell you how far a football field is, but beyond that, it's very difficult to tell. So glad they settled on this 250 mark because that's where it's normal for personal watercrafts and things like that. But, it just makes sense. Don't be surfing right off the end of somebody's dock and throwing waves right over the top of it. So keep your distance, get out there and surf where it makes sense. If there's a little chop, it's okay. You don't need the perfect water out there. Avoid repeat passes in certain areas. If you've got a fair amount of shoreline, be sure and use all of it. Get out there and have fun, go for those longer sections, but keep traveling in the same direction versus back and forth. And then, planning, get out there in the morning when people aren't rafting up. I, as a wake surfer, love rafting up with friends, but when somebody's wake surfing right off the bow of my boat, it definitely is annoying because all the boats are clanking together. And so just find a time and a spot that's appropriate for putting smiles on people's faces because that's what we're trying to do here. And then lastly, invasive species are a big issue. Make sure you're fully draining those ballast bags. Clean them if you can. We highly recommend doing that. So yeah, just be responsible. So that's the dad speech. I'll give you that. So yeah, and so that's pretty much it. We really appreciate your time today, and thank you guys for listening in. And if you guys are liking this, let us know. If you got a recommendation for something else that you'd like to hear us talk about, we'd love to do that. I've got a really good friend of mine who's an awesome photographer. He's actually done a fair amount of photography for us. We were talking about doing like a how to get awesome wake surf photos, little webinar, something like that. So if those things are of interest to you, let us know. Shoot us an email at sales@missionboatgear.com or pop on the website and fill out that form. So I'll cut it back over to Star and we can do some Q&A sessions here. Let's see. All right, looks like I need to unmute Star, which you can watch me bobble my head.
Okay. It looks like I'm unmuted. Okay, so yeah, we do actually have a couple of questions. I'll read them off a little bit. But also I wanted to mention one thing just before I forget. You did plug our blog, which I think is awesome. We have great content up there. We also have a YouTube channel. We have a playlist that is especially dedicated to wake surfing. So you can see our videos there too as well. They are on our website, might be a little bit difficult to locate where they are, but go to the YouTube channel at Mission Boat Gear and you'll be able to see the videos. So one question is, Delta is one of the more expensive options. Is it worth it?
I would say so, yes. It still is the best performing wake shaper on the market, despite the fact that we developed this 5 years ago. And I think it's the only product that was specifically designed, everything about it, for this application. Whether it's the materials, I touched on the material of our suction cups. This was designed just for this application. The glass lifting material is a rubber. It's a natural product that breaks down. A lot of the components, like they're using steel Posts, those were developed for glass lifting. They rust. A lot of the early springs were steel. They rust. Ours are stainless steel. We have brass inserts, drainage flows for everything. Every little bit was considered by Mark and I. This is what we do. We develop awesome products. We've done it for Fortune 100, 500 companies, and we try to give our customers the best possible value. But fundamentally, this is a very small market, believe it or not. And the cost to do this was very, was expensive. It took a lot of effort, and to do it in the US, there's a cost to doing that too. We love making things local. It just makes sense. So for us, it's about value. It's not really about, the price point. I think we're within spitting distance of the competition. And nobody else is offering a lifetime warranty and a one-time free replacement. Who does that? Usually, with my drone, it's a couple $100 to get that added. But we're about smiles, and we knew we could do it, and so we're offering that to our customers. So.
Okay, great. Sort of a two-part question. So you mentioned in the presentation that Echo floats. First, does Delta float? And then also, is it normal for the Delta to have water in it after surfing for the day?
Sure. So Delta does float. It is not normal for it to have water in it. You can see the seam here on the side. This is actually a ultrasonically welded assembly, to get technical for you. But basically, it's the same welding process that they use for welding two halves of your the windshield washer fluid container in your car. It's the same exact process. So it is very watertight. There is sometimes the remote application that this doesn't get fully welded together, and you may get a leak path. We haven't seen that. Sometimes if you were using a previous leash, the body could get cracked if it hit the back of the boat or took some abuse, which would then compromise the sealed envelope inside of here, so that it would take on water. The other thing that we did was we replaced the metal faceplate of Delta. So now it is a neutral buoyant assembly. So even if it does take on water, it will float still. It does float lower in the water. That's why we went to a fluorescent yellow suction cup. Makes it a little bit easier to spot than blue suction cups. Maybe a little lapse in judgment. But, it looked awesome when we did it, and you see it floating in the water, and maybe those things should be yellow. So that's the change there on Delta 2.0, but it does float. So should not be taking on water. If it is, shoot us an email at sales@missionboatgear.com, and we'll take care of you through our warranty process.
Okay, let's see. Okay, bear with me, it's a little bit long, but on a 2010-23 LSV, it has factory 1350 ballast, 350 in the bow, 500 center tank with two 250 rear tanks. Have a 750 bag in each rear locker. Use the Delta, love the Wave, but always looking to make it better. When trying to get the 60-40 weight ratio correct, would you consider the center tank to be in the front or rear or neutral?
Sure. The center tank is in the middle. So I've actually surfed that boat quite regularly. One of my best friends when we developed Delta had that boat. It was a 2008, so a little bit older. I think it was first generation of that model, but he had essentially the same exact setup. So I think if I heard that right, you had two 800s or 850s on top of the factory ballast. And then you had the front hard tank. Is that right, Star?
Yes.
So that was the same exact ballast setup. And that Wave was phenomenal. We absolutely loved it. So that setup for the ballast was pretty dialed. If you ask me, the wedge was something that we would play with. I think we do half down, depending on the rider. The kids didn't like the wedge at all. It would just get way too tall and rampy. And then, for me, I liked it about halfway down. And then the other thing is that if I remember correctly, the regular side Wave on that boat was just baller, and it was a little bit less on the, sorry, I think I have that flipped. Goofy side was awesome. And the regular side was just a little bit less. So I think we do like one passenger list towards the surf side to get that little bit more vertical and peel in the lip. But yeah, awesome boat. I love the way that thing throws.
Okay. Another question. I would like to get a bigger wave. If I use 2 shapers, will I get that?
Sure. That's a great question. We also get that. The real answer to that is no, you won't. Unless we surfed a dinner yacht. It was like a 70-foot dinner yacht out here on the lake, and we used 3 deltas. That laminar flow was so big, you need that much surface area. But I would say maybe if you have an X30, or is it the X30? The really large twin engine X boats, you may want to consider 2. But for most of the boats that are out there, I would say 1 is plenty. Don't even consider 2, because again, it's going to that larger panel size in essence, which is just going to increase your fuel consumption and not give you a cleaner face wave.
Okay, let's see. Thanks for hosting the webinar. I have a 2014 Malibu F22. I believe it has 2,800 pounds of stock ballast. Is that plenty of ballast, or do I need more? And the second part of the question is, do I want delta higher on the boat or lower towards the bottom of the boat?
So the F22, is it Malibu?
Well, MB. So I apologize.
MB, sorry. Yep, that's an MB Sport Star.
Oh, okay. My bad.
Okay. So, okay, I got hung up on that part. Give me the ballast setup again.
2,800 stock ballast.
Okay.
Is that plenty, or do they need more?
Where I'm not as familiar, MB boats aren't big here in the Midwest. So I'm not sure where the ballast is laid out in that. But, you know, the ballast that we were talking about with the 23 LSV would be a good setup. It's a pretty decently sized boat with a fair amount of freeboard. So I would say, yeah, if you're running, I don't know, call it, 1,000 pounds in each rear locker, including piggyback tanks and hard tanks, and you're running, say, 650, that other 800 pounds somewhere in the bow or midship, that should be a pretty good setup for you. And then did they have a question about location?
Yeah, so they just said, do they want the delta higher on the boat or lower towards the bottom of the boat?
Good question. So the location of delta solely determines whether the wave is clean or not clean or anywhere in between. Like I said, it's not actually changing the shape of your wave. So just clean face wave is what you need to think about. So what we recommend doing is fully ballasting your boat, getting up to a surf speed at 11 miles an hour or so. Start with that. And looking over the side of the boat when you're traveling through the water. Then position delta. The main panel of delta should be just below the surface of the water, as far back as possible. That's kind of the starting point for the best location for delta. So depending on the attitude of the boat, it's going to depend. I haven't actually surfed that particular boat, so that will be something you'll have to experiment with. But like your X2s, like a 2010 X2, that thing, the bow, it gets a lot of bow rise when it gets in the water. So the location for delta can be really high on the side of that boat. So it just depends on the attitude. If you have questions about getting set up, again, email us or call us on the main line. Mark and I are always happy to jump on the phone if you've got really want to get technical. That's the other cool thing about Mission is, if you'll get kind of the basic questions answered through email, but if you want to have a detailed conversation, we're always here. So if you feel like you're not, if you're stuck or anything like that, happy to jump on the phone with you and chat through it.
Okay, we're about 3 minutes to the top of the hour, 1 o'clock. So I'm just going to ask one more question because I have never heard this question before. And then like Kris said, if you have additional questions, go to our website or hit us up at sales@missionboatgear.com. But hi, Kris, the Delta and the Echo, could they work with inflatable boats longer than 22 feet with an inboard engine?
With an inboard engine? I've never seen an inflatable boat with an inboard engine.
Right, that's what I said. I'm like, this is a new one for me. So
Sounds pretty cool. It's merely, like I said, Delta or Echo work on any single engine watercraft. It's just a matter of getting it in the right spot. So, my question is, I'm not sure that it would stick to the inflatable material. Delta will stick to our reef mats and it holds pretty well. But it does over time lose suction on that soft surface, mainly because of the dimpling that's in that. So like if it's a Zodiac type material, it's kind of got that cross hatch pattern to it, which could create a leak path for air out of the suction cup. So it might come off. Now, if there's some of those inflatable boats have a fiberglass hull, maybe there's a section on there that you could stick Delta onto. The suction cups are about 4.5 inches tall. So you just need a step of a smooth surface that you can attach Delta to. So right off the bat, I think I'm gonna say no. Work because you're gonna have a problem getting it in the right spot. But outside of that, send us a picture. Happy to get it.
So, okay. How about one more, just because we have about a minute. So it's an interesting one too as well. I don't have a surf boat, but want to try a foil. Any benefits to having a shaper?
Yeah, I mean, as you see with foils are pretty awesome. We've been playing around a lot with those lately, and a ton of fun out there on the water. It's kind of cool because you don't necessarily need a big wave. But if you do have a wake surf boat, that can throw a wave, you can actually surf that wave pretty easily without hanging onto the boat, and you can just glide with it. So it definitely, that clean face wave is nice with a foil. When it's messy, you're essentially, the foil needs to be underwater all the time. So if you've got a messy wave, and you're trying to ride that wave, there's air pockets in there. So the foil is going to lose traction as it moves through the water. So all depends on kind of what you're trying to do. To get started, I would say you probably don't need a wake shaper. Just set yourself on a wakeboard rope, go back a ways, get out of the turbulence that the prop wash creates. The smooth water, it's like you're flying. It's pretty cool.
Okay, I think that's it for questions. If we didn't answer your question, we do have your contact information, so we'll make sure, if you sent it in through the Q&A, we'll make sure to answer those via email. Otherwise, go to sales@missionboatgear.com and let us know if there's any other types of webinars, subjects, topics that we should talk about. We're all ears. And thank you again for everyone joining us, and have a great weekend. Kris?
Yeah, thanks again. I really appreciate it. Without customers like you guys, we wouldn't be here. I'd still be, pounding away at the corporate job. So thank you guys for everything you've done for us and the support that you've given us throughout the years. And we look to keep bringing you awesome products. So keep looking for new stuff. And that's it. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.